Hello everyone, I have a really exciting video for you. I've been wanting to make this one for quite a while. It's the story of how I got my first pinball machine. It was quite crazy. We got it from probably about the furthest physical place you could go in the UK. And you'll notice at the bottom of the screen there is a time lapse. This is from Google Images, so it's not my exact journey, but it is the path that we travelled. You'll notice it says day 1. That's because it took multiple days to travel up there. It was a very long way, but I'll get to that later. But you can watch that at any point in the video. If your mind is wandering, you can watch that and it's quite entertaining. So basically I'd like to start with how I got in that situation. So back in December I was talking to my partner and I decided that I'd really like a physical pinball machine. Now, I already had the At Games Legends 4KP, but I really wanted a real one as well. It's a bit of an unobtainable goal, but this year I turned 30, so I said, you know, if there's any year to try and do something a bit crazy and unobtainable, this is probably the year. So my partner wasn't convinced at first that it would be good to get a real pinball machine, but luckily she saw the joy that the 4KP brought me and my passion for it, and so she got on board pretty quickly, which is really lovely. She's actually a true hero in this whole story, so I couldn't have done it without you. I love you very much, Violet. So I'll talk in another video a little more about how I decided what machines I wanted to get, but effectively I had a short list of machines that were the machines we would go for and that we would be happy to have in the house. So that was also a list that I'd worked out with my partner, tables she would be happy with as well. And so I started looking. It's a big question. How do you safely buy a machine, especially if it's secondhand? How do you go about getting that without getting scammed or getting, you know, something that's not worth the money that you paid for it? So luckily, the pinball community is really big and very helpful. So I knew a couple people from the UK who were into pinball, and actually it was one of the heavy contributors on the Pinball FX Discord, Wilbers, who's also a key person in getting the wikis sorted. He pointed me towards a website called Pinball Info. Now, if you were in the USA, you would just use Pinside, but the UK presence on Pinside isn't very big. So I used this website, Pinball Info, that was a lot more UK focused. So it actually had people in the UK selling machines. And the good thing about using a website like that, like Pinside or a website like Pinball Info, is that you can see their post histories, you can see their pinball machine collections. They can be site sponsors, they can be, you know, registered users. So you have a little bit more confidence that the person you're getting the machine from is actually a legitimate person than you would do if you were going off of Facebook or something like that. So I was browsing on Pinball Info, and actually the machines I was looking at that time in December 2024 None of them were within budget. None of them were the machines that we were aiming for. It was actually scrolling back in the past a good few pages where I noticed a Jurassic Park, the Lost World pinball machine for sale. The poster had posted it in early 2024, and the last activity on the post was in July 2024 from my memory, and this is December. So this was a good few months after the last activity, but it hadn't been marked as sold, and it looked like there wasn't that much interest from the comments. So I was hoping that that machine was still available and I could get that one. So I messaged the person, and it was available. And the previous owner of this machine that I was contacting is a super lovely person. They were very considerate. When I saw that post, I didn't have the money saved up for it yet, but they were really kind. They said, take your time. They said a time around April would be good for them, so if I could get the money by then, that would be great. So I got a bit lucky there. I would probably next time save up first and have a little bit of money so that you could drop it if you saw something that you liked. But we were going quite fast with our looking for a machine. So they had agreed, and the price was really good. It was only $2,500. And the machine itself looked like it was in decent condition, and it's a really rare one, that machine as well. There was only like 500 made or something like that. So the Lost World is a very good one, and for me personally, I'm a massive Jurassic Park fan, so it was kind of a dream theme, pretty cheap. We had to go for it. And that was the moral, the kind of key takeaway here from me and my partner, is that this one really seemed like it was worth putting in some effort to try and get. Because the previous owner of it was actually in Dundee, in Scotland. So that's past Edinburgh, like right up, one of the most northern cities in the entire UK. I think Angus, I think there's one more that's higher than that from what I know. And I am from Exeter, which is the southwest of England. So you can see it's literally about as far as you could physically get of a drive in the UK. Google Maps was consistently saying it would be about a 10-hour drive. And then that's not even including things like breaks and stopping for fuel and things. So it would be a serious, serious undertaking if we decided to go for that one. So we did and ahh about it a little bit. But we decided to go for it. So that's why I'm making this video, is that it was a hell of an operation, and I'll explain how we actually managed to get the machine from Dundee, Scotland to Exeter, Devon, and into our house. So there were a few issues, right? The first one is that it is a very long way. So a 10-hour drive, you know, if we start in the morning, we're not getting there until late that day, and we're going to be absolutely knackered. And, you know, when we get there, we're going to have to lift a pinball machine, you know, and test it and stuff. So, you know, we needed to find a way that we could get there relatively easily, so that we could test the machine, lift it, do everything we need, and hopefully not bother the owner too late at night, and then get it all the way back. The second big issue was that we live up a flight of stairs. So there's a flight of stairs outside our house, and we live in a small attached house. So it's not very big. The doors aren't very big. We don't have an outside garage that we could put it in. So we needed a way, even if we managed to do the drive, we needed a way to get it from the car into the house. And obviously, me and my partner, we're both women, so we're not very strong. We don't have a lot of upper body strength to be carrying stuff. And also, this is my very first machine, so I didn't know exactly how heavy they would be. I knew that they would be heavy, but you don't know until you've actually tried to lift one, right? So, how did we overcome these problems? So, what we did is, first of all, we did not take our car. I knew from watching things like Straight Down the Middle Pinball on YouTube and doing research that a big problem that people make, or a mistake, is that they drive their car to pick up the pinball machine and then they can't fit it in there. So we rented a van from a UK car rental company, and we rented a van that was going to be big enough, plenty big enough. That also saved on wear and tear on our car. The next step was working out a way that we could get there without being too exhausted, without it being too late, so that we had the energy to lift the pinball machine and we weren't bothering them at 9 p.m. So what we decided on doing was we would first drive, not halfway, but as far as we could on a Friday night after work. So we left at, say, 5:30 or closer to 6 after work on Friday. And then we drove for about 4 hours up to Wolverhampton in the UK, the Midlands. So we drove there on a Friday, and then we got a hotel for that night. And then that took 4 hours off of that 10-hour journey, making the drive then the next day about 6-7 hours, which is a lot more manageable if you're starting in the morning. So we did the drive, we stayed there overnight, and then the next morning we got up as early as we could, and we started the second day of traveling. So on this day, we were going from Wolverhampton straight up to Dundee. We got to Scotland, and I think that the sat-nav was worried about traffic, because we got to Scotland around 5, 5:30, 6, end of work time. And it was taking us around the country roads and stuff. So we were traveling in this massive van, going around the country roads. It was a little bit of a nightmare, that. But we did manage to get all the way to Dundee. And we booked our second hotel right next to where the pinball machine is, so that we didn't have anywhere to go. And right opposite the hotel was a Domino's, so we had some nice pizza and that night. So we drove up, and we managed to meet them at a decent time, so like 6 p.m. ish. So this is where being prepared really helped. So I didn't know exactly what we need, but I did think we'd need a few things. I brought a nut wrench so that we could take the nuts off of the legs. I also brought cable ties, and I brought fluffy bedding so that we could pad the machine and make sure it wasn't bashing, scraping on anything, or, any of the wood inside the van. And actually all of this was useful, especially the cable ties. So the pinball machine was not rattling at all. It was completely tight once we got it in. So we met them They were, like I said, they were absolutely lovely. They let me play on the machine, which was really nice. And I had a little look around their collection too. They had a very nice collection. Um, and we all helped lift it. So weight wise, the pinball machine was could be carried by two men. And barring that, for us, me and my partner plus one other person could carry it. So me and my partner plus the previous owner, we managed to lift it over to the van. We took the legs off, we slid it into the back of the van, and then cable tied it to the back of the van so that it didn't slide around. And then we were good to go. I could not believe how smoothly that part of the journey went. It was a really long way, but that first half was really not that bad. And especially breaking it up with the hotels, it worked out really nicely. So we were then on our way back. And on the way back, we didn't have a hotel. So we were going to do leave in the morning. So we stayed in Dundee overnight. And then we drove 10 hours back. So this is where, again, my partner was incredible. So she actually did all the driving. I was there to help her, but she had like a little bit of a personal mission that she wanted to say that she had driven Scotland and back. So she was very adamant that I didn't take the wheel. And she did it really well as well. I was a little bit ill that day too, so all the driving and traveling was kind of like rattling my brain around a little bit, so it was probably for the best too. So we got back, 10 hours journey, absolutely exhausted. That was day 3. So day 1 we travelled to Wolverhampton. Day 2 we travelled all the way to Dundee, tested the machine and put it in the van and stayed there. And then day 3 was the 10-hour drive all the way back in one trip from Scotland to Exeter. So the final day was day 4. And the big task that day was getting the machine into the house. So what we had done is we had hired a moving company. On the form, I filled it out and I just put the to and from destinations as our house. So they were a bit confused when they got here. But what they did basically is they took the machine out of the back of the van, we put the legs on it, and then they carried it up all the outside stairs just very carefully. Having the legs on it while carrying it was, made it a little bit harder, but at the same time, it meant that they could put the machine down. So while they were traveling up those stairs, there were little platformed areas that they could put the machine down for a minute and just have a rest. And then when we got to the front door, they could put the machine down and we could talk about the plan on how to get it in. So I checked the manual for this, and you can do this. We did this before we went to get the machine. You can find all manuals for pinball machines on the Internet Pinball Database website. So I checked the manual and I saw the width of the back box. That's the important part because the back box is wider than the machine itself. And I saw the measurements and then I went and measured our front door and there was a 1/2 inch space left over. So the machine just fit through. So I knew theoretically that it should fit, but that did not mean it was any less scary when they actually got to the front door. And they were like, no way is this going to go through. And they were a little, I was paying them, but they were not that happy to be carrying this big heavy machine up a ton of stairs. And they were not happy when it got to the front door because it really did not look like it would fit. But like I measured, it just about managed to squeak through the door. So we pushed it right through, we got it set up, and bam, that was it. Dundee to Exeter, we got the machine in. I couldn't believe it. That first day, I was just absolutely starstruck. I had the day off work, so I was just at home. I played, I think it was like 50 games that day. I could not get off it. Yeah, it was a Herculean effort. I can't believe that we'd managed to pull it off. It took a lot of planning, and honestly, we just paid the extra money to make sure that it all worked out. You know, rather than trying to do it all in one go, we got the hotel rooms, we hired the van, we hired the movers. All in all, it maybe added an extra £500 to the overall cost. But, you know, if you've got a task like that's barely achievable, just make your life easier in any way you can. That's it. Just prepare, take the time, and just get all those extras that you can. So we got the machine in, and I was playing it, right? And this is a little teaser for another video I'll do on maintenance. But that first day, I had played it all day, and then my partner had come home from work. She had to work that day, unfortunately. And I turned it on to show her something nice I had done. I'd put a little message saying that I loved her very much on the custom message on the DMD. I turned it on and it went pop, and the whole thing was powered down. So we actually had a fuse issue, like the first day that we owned the machine. It absolutely ridiculous. So the machine was actually out of order for a few weeks after we got it. Absolutely infuriated, and we put so much work into it. But I will talk about that because we got it all fixed up. It was actually an interesting problem in the end, and I did a lot of learning trying to resolve that as well. So I'll talk about that in another video about maintenance. But it doesn't matter for this video because it was a massive success, and I'm over the moon with it. This machine is incredible. I'll talk in another video about how to pick machines. But I'm over the moon with my choice for the first one. I could not be happier. And it was just bonkers. And it's nice to have a good story when, you've got a hobby like this. Just makes things a bit more interesting. So I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you very soon for some follow-up topics that I mentioned earlier. So thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.